Mm, Shall I go ahead and start? Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Go Zero training. My name is Gerardo. I'll be one of your facilitators today, and today's topic is future-proofing your projects, a general contractor and architect's guide to electrification. This webinar is being recorded, just so you know. I can go ahead into the next slide, please. A few housekeeping rules we'd like to go over before we get started. As I said, the session is recorded. Slides and materials will be shared after the webinar. You can drop questions in the chat at any time. We'll have a dedicated sections for Q&A as well. If you experience any issues, you can send me a message in the chat, or you can try leaving the call and rejoining. And we can go into the next slide. So these Go Zero trainings are brought to you by South Coast, the Energy Coalition in collaboration with Electrify My Home. And these trainings offer industry-aligned training, flexible training formats, and workforce development. Next slide. And today's webinar training is Larry Waters from Electrify My Home. You can visit the Go Zero training directory to sign up for all upcoming trainings. There you
All right. I'll take it from there, Gerardo.
go.
So, hey, everybody. Welcome, folks. It's nice to not see you all. Hopefully, everybody can see me and my screen. We should be good to go. I want to introduce myself. If you haven't been to one of our webinars or classes in the past, my name is Larry Waters. I'm the president and founder of Electrify My Home, the first all home electrification company. Now there's some other people getting in the tailwind. I've been around the trades, the HVAC trade since 1982. So a little gut check there is went to the school called UTI, which was really the best school to go to at that time. Um, I was doing this back when we were using duct tape for actually duct work, and my first drill had a cord on it. I'm a NATE certified technician for 24 years, and I've been BPI certified, Building Performance Institute certified, which is his building science understanding, since 2011. Uh, in 2015, because I was tightening houses up, figuring out how houses worked with BPI, figuring how the house as a system approach worked, and realizing that every furnace I was installing was too big for the house after we made it efficient. And started installing these cool little inverter heat pumps way back in 2013, 2014, and literally cut the I cut the wire on furnaces in 2015 and started installing heat pumps only. Just a little time check on that. That's way before California was as motivated as they are now to have this done, which is why I'm here ahead of you now, kind of way ahead of the curve. And then in 2020, I founded this company, Electrify My Home, so that a customer would have one source for everything that they needed in electrification. I share our mission statement with every class and every customer, which is providing the most efficient, cost-effective solutions, practicing responsible load management, and training and influencing other contractors to do the same. Um, that's the introduction. So we're going to talk about a little bit about electrification market in California, marketing opportunities, whole house electrification planning, and the importance of designing these systems right so they work, especially in retrofits. So when you're remodeling a house, hugely important that we look at the things that matter to the comfort and energy efficiency of the home now more than ever, because comfort is something that is a little harder to deliver with a heat pump, but it's a completely different comfort. And then duct design, install, and commissioning. We got to be able to fit these things in there, folks. So, okay. So our Trade Pro series is designed just to give you a crash course on electrification. Let you know how we got here and where we're going. Pinpoint out enormous business opportunities and open your eyes to better ways to serve your customers. So, what's the backdrop in California? We're going to we got an hour for this one. So, uh, electrification has been around for a long time. There was massive electrification movement early on in society when we were consolidating electrical systems, and these companies were building out these big electrical systems that were more than just a couple of blocks, and that was kind of the first lead. Then they needed to sell more kilowatts to build out the systems, and same time that a lot of cool stuff was happening, like I don't know, vacuum cleaners and washing machines and televisions and all these things that ran off electricity, all these new motorized items that made your life better. And that was presented in the early 50s through the early 60s as live better electrically. Let these electrical things make your life easier. Some of the policy decisions and things that we're living through right now have been going through for a while. So in 1963, the first Clean Air Act was amended. So this is not new. This is as old as I am. And all the way up to the more recent stuff, which is AB 32, the Global Warming Solutions Act in California. That required that California meet or be below 1990 levels of carbon emissions by 2020. They were beating that pretty well and knew they'd get there. So in 2016, they said, you know what? We can do better. And so they set a SB 32, which was to get 40% below 1990 levels of carbon emissions in buildings by 2030. This is what's pushing electrification now. We are in second month of 2026, going into the third month of 2026. A lot of this was happening around a time where there was some things happening in California, namely COVID, people not going back to work for a while. All these things happened to slow the pace, and now we're really up against a huge goal. Executive Order B55 required further carbon neutrality. In 2018, SB 1477 was put through. That's the original Tech Clean California program. That is a really great program for moving this and making people aware that heat pumps were a good option. And so they kind of did their job. Tech is still around. A lot of other people getting in the mix now, including the Energy Coalition and South Coast, and we're happy to be part of that. All right. So flames out by 2030. This is a big deal. Oh, look at that animation. This is a big deal. We need to install 6 million heat pumps by 2030. 6 million of them. We've done 2.5 million ish. Another 2 million are going to get installed through low and middle income programs. And then that means we've got 2 million of them to sell and install out there. We need to make sure that our customers are aware of where this is going, that gas furnaces and gas water heaters all over the entire state of California will no longer be available after 2030. And then in the Bay Area, it's 2027 for water heaters and 2029 for furnaces. So we're pushing it really close, and I'm up here in the Bay Area. All right, 70 cities in California have enacted these building codes to phase out gas in new buildings, and this has been going on for quite a while. But the whole state's going to do it. So it's going from 76 cities to the entire state. So why the electric insurgents? What is it that is driving all this, right? And a lot of people, we automatically go to the climate change thing because it's been high in the vernacular for a number of years that everything's kind of related to climate change, and this is related to climate change in the benefit that we'll get, but it's really about air quality. So California has we have a lot of stuff to be proud of here. We got like Yosemite, Golden Gate Bridge, beautiful cities, Hollywood, all the cool stuff we have. But we're also proud owner of 8 of the nastiest, dirtiest, polluted cities in the country. So we need to fix this problem. And the way we fix this problem is we reduce emissions in buildings. So buildings present as much issue in highly populated areas as the vehicles do. The difference is we can go with an electric vehicle and everybody can see you driving it around. That's kind of cool. But the if you replace your electric vehicle and you keep gas in your house, it's a net negative. Like we can get the gas out of the houses, we can reduce more carbon, and we can increase the value of the house. Because any car you buy, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth less money than it was the day you bought it, right? So by getting the carbon out of the houses, we can have much better impact and not have as much drag on the grid. So it's also a lot less energy is going to be used by heating and cooling homes and heating water than charging car batteries, although we're going to be everything at some point. All right. Gas stoves. Man, gas stoves are like a political football, aren't they? So I can't see your hands, but just, raise your hand in your mind, visualize raising your hand, and just say, hey, I got a gas stove in my house. What are the reasons why you would want a gas stove over an electric stove? And some of them is because that's what everybody has. But realistically, 70% of the gas stoves in the United States, or excuse me, 70% of the stoves in the United States are already electric. Like most people have an electric stove. And when most people think of electric stoves, they think of that one that's got that coil on the top of it that glows red hot, that when you turn it down, it still stays hot. It doesn't have good temperature control. But now we have great technology around this, which is called induction, and induction uses magnets to cook. Maybe everybody knows about that. If not, go look at a video on YouTube or something about induction stoves. You'll find that they cook better. They don't produce any heat in and amongst themselves. They just heat up the pan. So they keep the kitchen cooler and they reduce pollution like crazy. So this is a study that was done. And if you lived right next door to a gas power plant, and the most emissions you could think you would have, according to the EPA, is you could have 100 parts per billion of nitrogen oxides in the air if you're living right next to a gas power plant. However, if you have a stove in your house, you cook one dish on a gas stove, you have the potential of producing way more than 100 parts per billion inside your house. You cook a full meal on there, you got oven working, you got some stove tops working. There's a lot of emissions coming right in your house. And now we have hood fans in a lot of houses. Some houses don't have them. And if you run those all the time religiously, it's going to help some. But depending on what type of hood fan you have, they're not really great at pulling everything out, especially the front burners, depending on what type of situation you have. There's always going to be some of this exhaust that's going to be going in your house. And that exhaust combines with the moisture that's created during cooking processes. And then you get a little sunlight coming in the window, and that combination can make like noxious smog right in your room. So there's a lot of reasons why we love gas stoves, but there's a lot of reasons why we should really think through the idea of getting rid of the gas stoves. One of them is that some of this stuff is a little heavier than air once it gets going, and it kind of falls down where all the shorties in the family are, all the little kids are. So they've done research and they found that child onset asthma is 40% more likely in a house with gas cooking. That should be enough reason to consider an induction stove anyway. And induction stoves are just way better, man. They're like moving from the Betamax recording system to TiVo to online streaming. So it's just way better. Okay. The tide is turned on heat pumps. So heat pumps are now outpacing gas sales. Gas furnace sales for a long time, all the way up to 2020, were it's just like heat pumps just were not a thing because people didn't have the realization that I can even use a heat pump. And most people didn't know what it was. They lived with a gas furnace all their lives. They didn't even know what a heat pump was. Heat pumps are better, and the word started getting out. And after 2020 to 2022, the gas furnace sales were kind of keeping pace, but there was still a lot of heat pumps being put with those gas furnaces. And we get in here in 2021 and a half ish, and heat pumps really start outpacing. And this had a lot to do with California's Tech Clean California program and other state programs to emphasize getting heat pumps and then incentives around doing so. And then it became like, hey, heat pumps work pretty good. Gas is no longer a good investment. We kind of crossed that Rubicon line last year where having a combination gas electric house in the future is always going to cost more from here on out rather than a properly installed heat pump system. Now, all of these statistics are considering that these heat pumps are going to be installed correctly, and unfortunately, not all heat pumps are installed correctly. So it's really important that we do this right. So gas cost is going up, but so is electricity, which is why we need to electrify things super efficiently. Experts been talking about this for years since I've been paying attention back in 2015, 2016, 2017. The conversation was really coming out there. They were doing all kinds of research studies, and they found that as fewer and fewer people buy those therms of gas, the majority of the cost of that gas is the delivery. When you don't buy that therm of gas anymore, we have to raise the delivery cost because the cost of the maintenance of the system is not going to go down. So it's just simple economics, folks. There, it is going to cost more to have gas as fewer people are buying it. You can't offset a gas bill with a solar panel. So if you put gas back into a house, that customer is going to have that gas for a while and they're going to suffer those higher prices. So we need to look at like heat pumps as an opportunity in every single application right now. So Um, Remaining gas customers are going to share the cost of the pipeline maintenance. Gas heating systems in homes will be a liability when selling. Once there is this 2030 or 2027, 2029 in the Bay Area, these nitrogen dioxide regulations, nitrogen oxide regulations, it's going to be a liability when you're selling a house with gas in it. The worst thing somebody could do if they're saying, "Hey, I want to save money by putting a furnace in and a gas water heater," because it's cheaper, folks, to put the gas systems in. But when they go to sell their house in 5 years after that nitrogen dioxide rules are in place, then the savvy buyer is going to go, "Oh, this house has gas in it. I'm going to have to put heat pumps in here. That's going to be very expensive." So putting heat pumps in now avoids the cost shock of the difference in time as well. Because I can tell you what, it's going to cost less to put one in this year than it will 3, 4 years from now, because it's just gone up and up and up. And it's not necessarily the equipment cost. It's a lot of it is the cost of ownership of businesses and employing people. EPA announced they will no longer label any gas appliances as Energy Star's most efficient because there's an electric solution that's more efficient. Okay. Public sector investment is shifting kind of the conversation here. And one of the major turnabouts in California was this Switches On website. And they put this together a number of years ago. It's a contractor-based page. Customers can go in there with their zip codes and look up the all the incentives that are available in their area, and they can really they can optimize. And it gives contractors an opportunity to kind of brag about the electrification stuff they're doing, and it gives customers a place to go to find contractors that are doing it, so they don't just wing it and take a risk on somebody that's going, "Yeah, I've never really installed a heat pump anymore. Been kind of curious about that. I'll do one on your house." Don't do that. Find somebody that knows what they're doing, has good reviews. Customers that say, "Look at the reviews. Does it say my bills went down or my bills went up?" A lot of it is because of this thing called the duck curve. If you haven't heard of the duck curve, I'm going to try to explain it to you in under a minute. Okay. The California independent system operators are making graphs all day long of how the energy is going to be used during that day, so they can apply the right amount of electricity to the grid so it equals what people are going to use. And they do a lot of that based on assumptions around weather and just patterns. We know when the sun in the morning, or excuse me, let me go back one. We deliver the least amount of power overnight. Obviously, everybody's sleeping. We don't use a lot of power in our houses when we're sleeping. And then everybody wakes up in the morning. We get this little morning peak ramp. Lights are coming on, things are happening in the house. Start using more energy. Okay. Then the sun's coming up over the horizon, starts activating all these solar panels everywhere. All of a sudden, all the solar panels come online, and it makes it look like a drop in demand. Well, these are big curves that now the independent system operators have to deal with. Like, I got to provide all this power up to this point, and then somehow I got to rein back all that power. Otherwise, all this solar energy coming on the grid is going to cause us to potentially overpower the grid, which could damage the grid and all kinds of other problems. So their job has gotten a lot harder over this. And every year we add more solar, it causes this situation to be exacerbated. And so what happens is solar is the easiest power to shut off, but it is also the free stuff, right? Once it's installed, it's generating free power from the sun. So we have to keep expensive power sources running to keep the baseline going, even though we've got more power than we need with just the solar. And it's gotten to the point where we've got way too much power. So we have to export it and turn power off. A lot of solar panels that were installed early on don't have the ability for the utility company to shut them off, right? It wasn't until many years later that they started putting safe public safety shutoffs, or excuse me, safety shutoff systems in the solar so the utility could turn it off if the grid was getting a little too much power. Well, that becomes a problem because right here they found out that the solar puts out the most energy during the middle of the day, right here. And right as the sun is starting to go down, right here is also the same time when everybody's rolling home from work, turning on the air conditioner, turning on the lights, doing all our stuff that we do, putting the loads of laundry in, whatever it is, causes this massive ramp between 4 and 9 o'clock that we used to have in the middle of the day. So now this ramp at the end of the day, right when solar is coming down, is causing this big problem. So that has what has led to the solar rate plans changing to where they don't buy, you put solar on now, they don't buy that power off your roof for very much. It's very little. And you get charged a lot more for power between 4 and 9. So what can we do about that? Um, the It gives us an opportunity for innovation. We saw a cool thing yesterday. One of the major manufacturers is now building an inverter heat pump system that has an integrated battery. And Alex and I in my office here, we've been talking about this for a few years. And the dream of building a battery that can hang on the wall behind the heat pump. Well, one of the manufacturers is now doing that. So but what can we do? We can help use more of this power during this time and reduce our use during this time, and that's going to help steady up the ramp. So one of the ways we can do that is we can put in heat pump water heaters. And when we put in heat pump water heaters, we can program them to preheat during the day when energy is inexpensive. And if somebody's got solar on their roof, it's going to just come right out of the solar panels into the hot water, which is amazing. We can preheat our water. We can preheat and cool our houses, which is counterintuitive to what people know is like, I want to save energy. I'm going to leave it off all day and turn on my air conditioner when I get home. Bad idea because power is 30% more expensive between 4 and 9 now. We don't want to run our air conditioners then. A better thing to do is preheat and pre-cool the house and set it back or set it forward depending on the season. Like if it's summer, set it up a few degrees at 4 o'clock, let the house glide through 9 o'clock, and then start cooling the house back down again. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is with particular type systems and paying attention to the actual house and making sure it's efficient. We can do some smart charging if we're not going anywhere during the day, or if we're going out someplace where there's car chargers, we can pull power off the grid here. We potentially plug our house in the afternoon and run off that battery power. That technology is coming in a big way very shortly. And then we could do things like battery integrated stoves. Like we cook during that peak hour. So there's battery integrated stoves out there that have a built-in battery that run the stove when you're cooking and charge later when power's cheap. So I have one in my house. Thing works pretty good. Pretty nice stove. All right. What are some of the other benefits that we can get from correctly designed electrification upgrades? This is more HVAC focused, like getting rid of the furnace, putting in a good heat pump. I can, with a good, well-designed heat pump, like an inverter style heat pump system designed specifically for the house, taking into consideration the loads, like doing a load calc on the house, which I'll show you in a second, can provide extreme comfort, like comfort like you've never felt before. Like my house is. It's always the same temperature in my house, barely hear the thing running. I hear from my customers all the time. Oh my God, it's so quiet. My house is the same temperature in every room. It's so quiet. It's environmentally friendly for those who care about that. Like everybody should at that point, but environmentally friendly. It's better for the environment because I don't have all those nitrogen oxides going out into the environment when I'm running that system. I can potentially, if I fully electrify my house, I can disconnect from the gas line, and I'm not, all those micro leaks that we have in our own gas systems in our house are way worse for the environment than just the exhaust. So by getting rid of that, we're helping the environment a lot. They're safer because furnaces, like you might look in the newspaper and say, hey, $29 furnace safety check. Like you don't need to safety check a heat pump. It's not, there's no carbon emissions that have to be worried about that could potentially come in your house and make you sick. There's no more gas there. There's no more flame there. So way safer for your family. And because a properly sized heat pump system is going to run longer, I can get some extreme air quality out of these things. I can run them over a really good filter. And instead of having these 5 to 10 minute cycles once your house is warm or cool with a standard system, my system is going to run for an hour using a tiny bit of energy, run very slowly. I'm going to be pulling particles across those filters for those long periods of time and really get the air clean in the house. Okay. So here's a big question. So for architects and general contractors, is our new homes comfortable? In the last couple of years, we've gone and looked at a lot of houses. I'm kind of a house nerd. So I've gone and looked at a lot of new house construction just in my area where I live. And some of the builders are doing some pretty amazing stuff with that. Like some of them are doing closed cell foam underneath the roof assembly. So the attic is like a semi-conditioned space. So I don't have all that heat at the ceiling. I don't have all the radiation. and then putting in more closely designed systems that are making the house more comfortable in the last few years. But up to this point in time, they really haven't been, especially when we have gas appliances. So this is a this is a Energy Star home, and it was supposedly designed for proper, even energy efficient operation. And there's this group of people that went out and looked at a bunch of this stuff like 10 years ago. And this particular one was commissioned off of I think it was a 50 house survey. And they looked at this particular new house. They came into this house when it was cold in the morning and just turned the furnace on and measured everything. And what they found was pretty enlightening. Like, this is a supply register. You see a little thermo link here. So they're measuring temperature here, pressure, saturation of temperature in the house, all these different things. And what they found was pretty enlightening. So they started the test. The lower floor thermostat set to 68. The upper floor thermostat was at 69 degrees, and the upper floor ceiling was 68 degrees. And they had just only ran the lower floor. This was a house that had dual zone control. At 15 minutes, with the lower floor only calling, the lower floor thermostat was still at 68. The upper floor thermostat was still at 69, but the ceiling upstairs was 85.3 degrees. And that's because when we blow really hot air into a cool room and we achieve more than a 25-degree temperature differential, it creates very buoyant air that pushes through the ceiling. So we get the ceiling really hot, it activates the insulation, drives the heat out the top. The test ended at 53 minutes. The lower floor, finally, when it got to a comfortable temperature of 72, the upper floor closet temperature back in the corner, where there was no ventilation in the closet, that upper floor closet was 92 and a half degrees. Is that a comfortable home? So I get the 72. And remember, I still only have the lower floor thermostat on. I'm not even using my upstairs thermostat. And it got to be 92. And that's all from stacking effect or just heat rising. So houses aren't that comfortable. So if I have a system that's putting out 125, 130-degree air all the time, it's going to get very buoyant, very powerful. It's going to heat up things that are higher. Heat pumps don't do that. Heat pumps generally heat with air that's closer to room temperature, especially if you put the right one in. It'll give you 100-degree air when it needs to, but it's also going to give you air that's very close to room temperature when we get close to set point, so we don't cause these problems. So this solution can be fixed with heat pumps done correctly. Okay. New home air leakage. California Energy Commission commissioned this report. This gentleman named Rick Chitwood, I don't know if anybody knows, he's a legend in home performance in California. He like figured out a lot of stuff, this guy. So what they looked at was, where are houses leaking and where's everything going? And they found that the attic space is where most heat is leaving because the heat rises and pushes up against the ceiling, leaves through the attic. The garage was responsible in several houses, and then other was just like around doors, around windows, wherever else it's going to leak through the vent fans, whatever. But 47% of all the air leakage in the house was going through the ceiling. So if we take care of the ceiling, we can knock a big number off of this thing, right? And if air leaks out of the ceiling, it has to come in from somewhere else. So if we slow down the leak at the top, we'll slow down the leakage at the bottom. Okay. All right, so this was leakage at 400 CFM per ton. Um, so basically, they're looking at, this is an ABC grade down here. Single family homes did have the best grade. This is 5% duct leakage. But what they found when they were starting to look at apartments and things like that, and townhouses, there was a lot of leakage in these systems. And because they have different testing requirements and they're kind of connected to each other. But we can do better on that. And the requirement for 5% leakage is really, it should be tighter than that, right? Okay. So the frequency of correct room airflow in new homes. So they looked at a whole bunch of statistics here. They found that when they did the load calculation and they measured the actual amount of airflow coming into the room, that only 17% of those registers that they tested were actually set to the correct CFM within 10% each way. Only 25% of the supply grill velocity was correct. What supply grill velocity is it's how quickly and how much force the air hits the register, and is it blowing the distance and the amount of air that it's designed to. And only 25% of the houses had that. And then delivering air to the unoccupied portion of the room. This was really bad because everybody uses the wrong dang registers. So 1% of the houses had the air delivered to the unoccupied portion of the room. And then what that means is if you've got registers in the ceiling, you need to keep your air exchange at the ceiling. And they put in these three-way grills that blow the air down, and that blows air on people, which we're not supposed to blow air on people. There's a thing called ASHRAE, and you need to look at the ASHRAE guidelines. And one of the ASHRAE guidelines is do not blow air on people in the occupied space. So when they figured it all out, only 0.04% of all the houses they looked at was correct. So we can't rely on design. We can't rely on the HERS rater. We can't rely on the stuff being properly done without a lot of training and a lot of understanding and having people do it that know how to do it. And it's not that easy to find those because everybody's telling you, oh, we're great at this, but some people just aren't. Okay. So your duty to your client as a general contractor or an architect or even an HVAC guy is you're their trusted advisor. It's not advisable, just from what you've seen already, it's not advisable to recommend gas at this point. Most of California, and I won't say most, but a lot of California right now, for the furnaces we can install, are called ultra low NOx or ultra low emission furnaces. The manufacturers only build those furnaces for a small part of the parts of California and parts of a couple other states. So when California does away with those furnaces and says no more furnaces, those manufacturers are not going to be supporting those products that are only being sold to these areas. So by putting one of those systems in for a customer now, we are potentially setting them up for a furnace that might only last 5 or 6 years before they can't get parts for them. And boy, with those furnaces, do they need a lot of parts. We do a lot of training, a lot of contractors get in front of us. I've never heard any contractor in 4 years that we've been doing this training say that they liked low NOx furnaces, that they weren't problematic, that we weren't setting the customer up for problems if we put them in. So poor upfront decisions are costly. We need to talk to our customers a little deeper because some customers out there are resistant to this whole gas change thing. But they just need to understand it's the way it's going to have to go, and your next one's going to have to be that way. You should do it now. Put a heat pump in and change out the furnace, put a heat pump in now, because later on, when that unreliable furnace that we install fails, you're going to have to put a heat pump in anyway, maybe at $20, $32. It doesn't make any sense. So planning, design, and execution are super important. You need to learn more about these things. Keep going to these classes. Go to our 3-day class. All right. So planning. What are we going to do about planning? Quick time check. Okay, we're good. All right. So planning. We talk about this thing called good electrification. And it's a simple term, right? There's all kinds of words you can make that more flashy, but it's good electrification. We want to do this right and present good electrification. And what that means is that we need to install the most efficient solution. But does that mean we need to install the most expensive solution? No, we don't have to go with the most expensive system to get the most efficient solution. We can go with a different platform type of equipment that costs less than some of the other really expensive stuff that really kind of does the same thing and just execute on the project much better. And we can get the most efficient solution without paying for the most expensive equipment. Okay. Utilize existing infrastructure whenever possible. Consider all the electrification requirements from the start. If you're going in and planning a remodel for a customer, you should be looking at all the gas. Make getting rid of the gas in this house completely part of the goal. Like they might have a stove, a dryer, a water heater, a furnace. They might have a gas barbecue. They might have a gas fireplace. We want to talk to customers about this. Like, do we really want to leave more gas in the house? Are you really going to use that gas fireplace? Like, if you're just going to use it for ambiance, because that's really what those are good for, we can put an electric one in that looks like gas, right? So the four rationales for this are: we're going to reduce a lot of carbon at the source where it's happening, right? Right there where the exhaust is being created. We get rid of that, we've helped the problem. We can give safer appliances. It's much safer to have an electric stove in your house, especially an induction stove. An induction stove is never going to cause a fire. The burners don't get hot. As soon as you take the pan off the burner, within a couple seconds, the burner shuts down. The surface always stays relatively cool, so they also stay very new looking for a long time. But especially like in a senior citizen's house or something, or maybe somebody's not paying attention and they knock a dish towel over on the gas flame, catch the whole kitchen on fire. That is not happening with an induction stove. It could happen with one of those electric ones with the coil on top, but nobody's going to those. Uh, Much healthier. If I get rid of that and I get rid of my furnace and I get rid of my water heater, and water heaters, what we call backdraft or spill a lot because different little pressure changes inside the house can make the exhaust from the water heater go right into the house. If I get rid of those appliances and put in electric ones, I'm making this family healthier and I'm keeping them safer. And there's no comparison in the amount in the level of comfort that we can provide with a good, well-designed heat pump compared to a gas furnace. There's just none. So I implore you, if you're talking to your customers, I really want a gas furnace because I've had it. I've had it forever and it's great. Well, great. You used to have a tube TV. You used to have a flip phone. You used to have a car without a computer in it, right? You used to have a car without advanced cruise control. You used to have all these things, but you've changed away from those things because they're safer or they're more efficient. And that's the same thing we're doing to people's houses. We're getting rid of the gas to make it the next logical transition of technology in the home. No different from going from that tube TV to the flat screen. Now most people are on their fifth flat screen and they're getting bigger and bigger, right? Do you really need, I don't know. 84-inch TV sounds kind of cool. I don't have one like that. Um, And then we have to consider the electrical infrastructure. Now, if you're an architect and you're designing a new home, obviously the new standard is 200 amps. If you're remodeling a house and you're going, oh, we just need to do a panel upgrade on this house because we're going to put electric appliances in. That's great that you want to put a new, safe, kind of modern panel in, but do we really need to increase the amount of power available? When you increase the amount of power available, it requires a lot more in-depth conversation and work from the utility company, which can stall out a project for a while, right? So we want to look at our electrical infrastructure for what it is and figure out what we can do on it. And the electrical infrastructure, there's a lot of power in 100 amps, a lot of it. So we can get a lot of work done. And then heat pumps are the heart of electrification. So we got the brain, which is the electrical system, and the heat pumps are the heart of it. We can't do efficient electric heating without a heat pump. And we can do very inefficient electric heating with a heat pump if it's the wrong heat pump installed by somebody that's going to just pop a new unit in there and not do it correctly and design it correctly. So make sure you use the right heat pump for the right application, installed correctly, and don't fill your brain with a bunch of garbage, right? Or your electric panel. I don't know, folks. Everybody agree on this picture? That's probably not a safe electrical panel. What do you think? I'm thinking this screams to me owner builder, owner remodeler. Uh I'm just gonna put the circuits in now because I need one. Oh, I just realized I need a new circuit. Let me go just drop it in. Not even worry about going through the cabinet. I'll do that some other time. I've seen houses with this in it before. I can't remember if this is a picture I took or I found online, but make sure all the electrical load calcs are done. It's not hard to do an electrical load calc. There's some great resources out there online where you can do an electrical load calc like in 5 or 6 minutes. It's not a big deal. But you know what? There's a lot of electricians out there that don't do them regularly or don't know how to do them. They just upgrade the panel, put more power in. Why worry about it? So just like HVAC contractors don't do load calcs. More are doing them now, but a lot of them haven't done them for years. All right. Assume all homes will eventually have an EV charger. Talk to the customer about the electrification plan, which will help you design to determine the panel needs up front. And then consider other things other than amperage increases like smart devices and things like that. Don't leave them with surprise panel work down the road. We see this all the time. We teach this in our classes, is if you're just adding like a heat pump water heater to an existing panel and you've only got two spaces left, what do we do? Do we take those last two spaces, yet the customer still needs a heat pump and they might want an electric stove and all that? Do we do that? Or what are some of the other options we can use? If there's utility roadblocks, which means wire coming in from the street, extremely expensive to put a new wire in, and they're telling you, sorry, the conduit isn't the right size. So we got to pull new conduit so I can pull that heavier wire through to have the 200 amps. So that might be, I don't know, 10, 12, 15, $20,000. And depending on if you got to cut across somebody's landscaping or something like that, very expensive landscaping. So there's a lot of costs go into that. Consider using something like a smart panel or a switching device or a circuit pausing device. Okay, so here's some examples of some things that didn't go too well. This is a house in Richmond, California. We're in the Bay Area. Um, this house started with all gas. They called a contractor out who, during the rush of contractors becoming electrification specialists, and the only require for contractors to become electrification specialists was there was a rebate. And they go, okay, we're going to go in and put a heat pump in a house that only had gas in it before. And they go, oh, I got such and such size house. They have a gas mentality. And they says, I better put a big heat pump in because it's going to equal the capacity of the old gas system instead of making the house more efficient. So they put the heat pump, and in order to get this heat pump system in there, they had to put a new panel in. Okay. The third project is when we got called in on this. They wanted a heat pump water heater and they wanted power ran to their stove and dryer. And they were getting batteries and solar at the same time. Guess what? Because they were stuck with this heat pump system that cost them a lot of money they didn't want to replace, they had to then upgrade the service amperage to the house with another new panel. So two panels in a few years. So multiple panel replacements, oversized HVAC. When they sized the solar, they sized it to the oversized HVAC, which wasn't set up right. It was using way more energy than it should have. So they got way more solar than they needed. So if they would have went back in a time machine and they would have dealt with a company that was savvy on all of it and could have advised them on the whole thing, they could have got one panel upgrade, a smart panel, downsize the inverter to actually match the unit the house's needs and not have six breaker spaces, only have two, 20 amps instead of 70 amps. And then they would have needed smaller solar. They wouldn't have needed a second panel. This customer could have saved $25,000 by, but he's in that situation. He's got somebody coming out. Oh yeah, I'm an expert on heat pumps. The guy, the heat pump didn't get put in right, caused this whole trickle effect. So it's really important that we look at all this. We have enough information now. This was early on. This happened like 4 years ago. So this was early on. There wasn't a lot of education and information around it. There is now. Okay. Chart a course and plan your budget. Like look at what it's going to take in the house and kind of what things are going to cost. Like the heat pump, putting a solar system in or putting in the heat pump is expensive. It's probably might be a little bit more now because there's not tax incentives like there were. But this is going to be expensive. Some people are going to plot this out. Like one of the things we specialize in is helping people through the process. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do next? Um, Maybe they're going to get battery storage. Maybe then they need a panel. We don't know. Maybe we want to put off the panel until we do some of the other work and get the process started with the utility company, do our stuff we're going to do, and then upgrade the panel after we've done our work, so it doesn't keep the flow broke, or so it doesn't break the flow. Okay. So here's some common Bay Area examples, probably similar to a lot of areas down in Southern California as well. Is 100 amp service. They have an electric dryer and everything else is gas. So they want to put in a heat pump. They want to put in a heat pump water heater and an induction range. So what are we going to do? So we keep the panel in place. We specify low capacity heat pump split, change out the dryer with a heat pump, put in a heat pump water heater, or split the dryer with a heat pump water heater. Like take one circuit and use a splitting device and run both of them off of one circuit. They just can't both run at the same time. There's cool devices out there for that. Pre-wire for the future range, tell the customer to save up for the solar or the EV and eventually get a new panel, right? That's one good scenario. There's another option, and the same thing. Maybe they're going to go with a heat pump dryer, and we're going to put a heat pump in where it's 120 amp breaker runs the whole machine, like the outside runs the inside. So I only need two spaces, two very small spaces on the electrical panel. Maybe I do a plug-in water heater because I don't have enough space in the panel. So I put a 120-volt plug-in water heater in. Just make sure you size it right. And then we can get the induction range. Or maybe they want to go with the battery range. But there's a lot of different options where we can keep the customer on their existing 100 amp service by installing these low energy appliances. We also call this the watt dieting if you haven't heard that. Okay. We're gonna have a products webinar. We're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff. Attend that. You'll learn some things about what's available, right? Make sure if you're going to put in systems like this, if you're going to specify systems like this where they're multi-zone, that you still do a load calc on the house and you try to match each load in each room as closely as possible because it can create problems. Because when you put a system in like this, you have to match it to the capacity of all the systems. And oftentimes, the smallest capacity system on the inside of the house is way more than that particular room needs. So we have to put a much bigger system in for a house that would need a smaller system if, say, we were ducting it. Avoid the value engineering, man. The value engineering is killing this stuff. So include the HVAC design early on. And I know there's more regulations, more things about this. I remember the day when we would go out to a house, the GC would have the floor in, and he would call us and say, "Hey, man, come out and give me an estimate on air conditioning this place." And then the way that the house was being built, there was no way to get any ductwork anywhere, and we had to scrimp. There was no way to get the correct airflow to the rooms. We need to engineer this stuff into the design of the house to make sure we have enough space, but also have enough space to get enough air into each space, right? These are long-term decisions. Like I've been limited in projects that we've done by the interior decorator saying you can't put that grill there. And I says, well, would they rather have that grill not be there or be uncomfortable in this room because it's the only way we can do it? And if you, the architects were probably on the call have heard that before, right? Like, I don't want to see that grill where the air goes in. Well, you can put it way over in the corner, but that's too big. I need a smaller one. You put a smaller one on, it affects the way the system operates. It's going to cost them way more to operate, and they're not going to be comfortable. And then it's like, oh, I have this beautiful home I walk into. I can't see any of the stuff, but the place don't cool down, right? Thermal comfort and health outcomes are equally as important as aesthetic comfort. So in other words, you're going to have to see some of this stuff. Some of it you can hide a little better, right? You can do some things, but like reducing return air sizes because you don't want to see a grill somewhere is a really quick way to having an uncomfortable, energy inefficient home. And we need to get that message across. You may actually save by doing a load calculation to inform smaller equipment. You're doing all the other plans and everything. Get a load calculation done on the house and find out what it really needs. Figure out how much air each room needs and what size ductwork needs to go into that room to deliver that much air, and then build around it. Build the infrastructure to get it there. Use any available incentives. California Energy Smart Homes has a rebate for new builds to help offset some of the additional cost. Okay. Design. Okay. This gigantic unit here does the same thing as this small unit here. These are available in all sizes. They're quieter, more efficient potentially, and more discreet. And they're gonna meet the requirement of smaller lot lines or city regulations about space on the side of the house. We work in a lot of really heavy dense population metro areas, and those metro areas they have these rules around these things, not only about size and distance to the property line, but also sound. So um, if you have a traditional system, and this is not a traditional system. This is an inverter, but this is a unitary system. But you see how big that thing is. Like I'm standing next to it. I'm 6 feet tall. So that's a big unit. But these systems are going to be more apt to turn on and off more. We want systems that are going to run a long time and use a little bit of energy once they get the house cool or warm. So traditional systems, and you might be talking if you're a general contractor, you might use a subcontractor that just likes to put basic stuff in. So there's a little bit more money we can pull out of the job. That's great. Let's just upsell the customer on a good one and then have a little bit more money off the top of that, right? So what happens when you have a heat pump system? or an air conditioner, even a furnace, and it's a single speed unit. It runs one speed. It's either off or on. Um, those units pull a lot of power every time they turn on, and they don't play nice with the set point temperature in the house. They're always warming the house up a little warmer and letting the house cool back down and then turning back on, and they kind of do this all day. Good inverter technology, when it's installed right, is going to give us a completely different animal. So not that inverter technology implies that it has a built-in volume control. So when it has that built-in volume control, it doesn't need to use a lot of energy to start every time, which is great. Also, it can speed up and slow down. So if I've got a larger job to do in the house, if I'm walking into an 80-degree house and I want it to be 75, this unit's going to start from a single rotation, nice and slow, not a giant boost of energy. And then it's going to ramp up based on what it sees with the thermostat. And it's going to take care of this temperature differential pretty quickly. And then we want it to settle down instead of overshooting and shutting off and warming back up again, or vice versa in the wintertime. We want it to slow down. So this is called the tempering phase. This is air change phase, air temperature change phase. This is called tempering phase. And what happens here is it gets to the room temperature. This is how we get so much comfort out of these things. It gets to room temperature and it slows way down. And then it starts working on all the furniture in the house and the countertops and the bar stools and all the knickknacks and everything in the house that was 80 naturally because it just got that way from being warm outside. Once we get all of that stuff down to our set point temperature and everything in my house is the same temperature, I can keep it warm or cool using a tiny bit of power. So if you've ever like had a battery charger, like one of those big battery chargers, and it's got jump start mode, it's got charge mode, and it's got trickle charge mode. This is basically what we're doing. We're making the house into the thermal storage battery, and then we're putting in a really good battery charger. So once my house is charged up and it's at temperature, I can use very little energy to keep it there. And typically the systems we install are going to use about 1/5 the amount of power here as they do here, which means I can run it for 5 hours here for every 1 hour of this. So keep the temperature the same. It's less expensive to keep the temperature um, more steady. You go to bed at night. Don't turn it back. Don't turn it all the way off. Turn it down a little bit if you don't want it to run all night, but don't let all the heat leave the rest of the house. If you like to sleep cool, turn it down and open your bedroom window. If it's in the summertime, you don't want to do that, but you can have cooling on all that, right? So, this is the best way for us to do this the most efficiently. Do a load calc. Load calculation. Now, this is old school load calc. I do old school load calcs. Part of my company does new school load calcs. So this is the one I learned on 15 years ago. So this is the one I do. But what you do is you take all the information, the windows, the doors, the insulation, the amount of insulation we have on the roof, is it slab floor, is it crawl space, everything into this uses local weather data, and it's going to tell you what size system we need. Now, this is in Fairfield, California. It gets kind of warm here. The design temperature is 96. Cooling or heating design is 38. Summer design is 96, but it'll get to 102, 103. Um, but this is not only going to tell us what size system we need, and when we look at this chart over here, this graph over here, we're looking at how much capacity is needed on the hottest and coldest days of the year. And then, but it also tells us exactly how much air we need in each room. And if you look at these two rooms, they're both 9 foot by 10 foot. This is a big deal. One of these rooms needs 50% more air than the other one does. Why is that? It's not because the way the house is facing, it's not because of the window, it's not because of anything other than this room has two outside walls. Mother Nature is on two sides of that room, so it needs more conditioning. So what most HVAC contractors are going to do, and I know this because we ask the same question in all our classes, and everybody guesses wrong, and these are HVAC guys that are taking time out of their career to learn more, and they don't understand this basic thing. Some do, but most don't. Is if I put the same size duct in both of these rooms and I deliver the same amount of air in both of these rooms, which is usually what's going to happen if there's no load calc, because they're going, oh, this is the same size room as that is. If I don't have the ability to put 50% more air in here, or I put 50% more air in here when I don't need it, it's going to cause conditioning problems. Either this room is going to over condition, it's going to overheat and over cool, or this room is going to under condition. So it's really important that we put these in here with little valves on them, kind of dial that in. That was that statistic I showed earlier, is how much air, only 17% of the houses, the amount of air coming in the room was actually matched to the load count. That's crazy. We should be at 85%. Okay. The equipment requires space. If there's a space on the side of the house that has like it's the no man land side, they're not pulling the trash cans out on that side, and there's enough space between the property line and the house, don't go filling the wall full of a whole bunch of stuff that you can't put a unit next to. Put the stuff somewhere else where it needs less clearance. Like things you hang on the wall don't need as much clearance as the unit is going to. But like all this stuff on this wall is going to prevent a system from being installed here. Now this one's got one down line, but if I was on a limited amount of space on this side, or if I had 5 feet over here and 3 feet on the other side, and I know we're not going to move all this electrical to the other side, but consider this. Ductwork needs space to run, and it's not through a vaulted ceiling. Don't run the ducts all the other side of the vaulted ceiling. Go out of the knee wall, right? Get a lot of force out of the knee wall and blow the air to the other side. You must follow the codes, which include minimum property line setbacks. Architects leave extra room in the mechanical areas. When you're designing houses now and you're designing a mechanical area and probably putting a tankless water heater in, if you're not doing a heat pump, maybe I'm not sure what that's going on with that in all areas right now, but the water heater that they're going to have to get later is going to be a much larger tank. So we need to make sure that there's enough room in there to put it in there. There's enough room for ventilation, that there's a way to ventilate the thing. So the heat pump water heaters are going to need to move air in that room. So we need air for air exchange. If you're putting one on the inside of the house on the first floor of a slab house, then we need to worry about it. Okay. Address the ductwork. This is where all the problems are. We can be really, really creative with these things. The return air, it doesn't really matter where the return air goes if we balance our system. This is not a air intake, it's a pathway for air to get back to the system to be delivered into the room. You can conceal them in doing things like that. You can put units on the walls. You can do multi-zone systems with really smart, attractive equipment, and there's some great solutions around this stuff. We can hide things a little better in the ceiling if you want to do that, but be cautious about putting these multi-zone systems in because you have to match load. Or my prefer, always go ducted if we can, because then there's just a grill, all right? There's not a lot showing. So implementation, what do we do? Ideas are easy and cheap. Everybody has them. Execution is all that matters on this stuff, right? A well-designed heat pump system is unrivaled. Code is driving us to this. Code does not appear to be driving comfortable outcomes. They're only saying you need this equipment. They're not saying that it should be done correctly. They are requiring a little bit more, but most contractors are just putting things in and hoping they work well. We need to, for that, you need to work with installers who understand heat pumps. Or if you work with installers and you don't think they do understand heat pumps, say, hey, we're going to start getting our jobs better. I want you to go to these classes and learn how to do this and up your game so that you can up the game that I'm presenting to my customers. Incorporate system design best practices in your construction work. And I can tell you, the company that's doing it correctly is not going to be the lowest bid guy. You can't. I had a contractor tell me the other day, "Hey, you want to put heat pumps in 10 houses? Great. We're getting them done for $10,000 a piece." Can't A company that's going to go and do design can't do a 1,500 square foot house for $10,000, right? You cannot deliver good income outcomes at that price. So it's not going to be the lowest bidder, but you will have far better outcomes. And then you can ask your customers, hey, did I do a beautiful job on your house and your granite countertops and design? And they're thinking in the back of their head, yeah, but the house isn't that comfortable, right? We can make them comfortable too. So make your comfort as much as a standout as the kitchen, and you'll do well. All right. So if you have any questions, this is our contact info right here. Come to the classes. We got a lot of classes coming up. We're here to help. We got a 2-day comprehensive boot camp coming up March 9th and 10th in Indio. So it's going to be nice over there. This is the season. If you plan on going to this, make plans early because there's now, they got to get a room. And then we got another one in May in Diamond Bar. But if you got a contractor working for you that's an HVAC, if you're a general contractor and you just want to learn more, put 2 days aside. We're going to give you so much information and so many places where we're going to scrape the surface for you to get more knowledge that, I mean, everybody that leaves that class is blown away by it. You can check out our reviews on those. So, you can register here. I'll give you a second to hit that with your phone if you're ready. All right. Uh, there's one coming up tomorrow. This is a great class. If you got nothing going on tomorrow and you can make it down to Burbank, sign up for this class. This is one of the best home performance and heat pump trainers. This is not me. This is another trainer, way more serious than I am. The that will blow your mind with the information that's available, and that's happening tomorrow. And then we're doing one on residential and light commercial heat pump water heaters on March 19th. That's going to be in Diamond Bar if you're more interested in that. And then this is the training directory that you can hit that. You can hit that QR code with that. Sorry, lots of QR codes here at the end. I might think we might be running a couple minutes over, so I appreciate everybody hanging in for the hour. Usually these are an hour and a half. We get a lot more information out. But I think we did it. We got a lot of stuff out there for an hour. Can you imagine what you're going to learn in 2 8-hour days? It's so much fun too. These classes are really fun. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. And